Hello everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of our Lange series. In the previous episode, we opened up the experimental period of Lange Söhne by going through a few noteworthy special editions. Furthermore, we dove deep into mechanical marvels such as the double split and turbograph, alongside the 1815 chronograph collection. In this episode, we are going to take an in-depth look at the Richard Lange Polymerite and its philosophy, unprecedented innovation with the Cabaret Tourbillon, a masterpiece, Zeitwerk, and its expansion, and finally, the Daymatic and the Referenzuhr. So, let's go. I would like to start this episode by introducing a member of the Richard Lange collection, as I think this is one of the best watches to reflect what a Lange Söhne is about. Richard Lange Polymerite, a time-only watch with a price tag of $128,600 in 2008. To understand this watch's importance, we must look back. Richard Lange himself, the second born of the brand's founder Ferdinand Adolf Lange, spent his life on inventing and improving precision instruments. Richard Lange Polymerite, in my opinion, is the foremost embodiment of Richard Lange's philosophy, combination of utter simplicity with exceptional mechanics, chasing after precision and accuracy. The watch came in platinum and pink gold, limited to 50 and 200 pieces respectively. It is graced with the spectacular Lange Söhne case structure and the three-step enamel dial. Crafting a plain enamel is already a demanding profession with very high rejection rates, let alone a multi-step like this one. Richard Lange Polymerite is just flawless. There are simply no cracks, no marks on the enamel. Blued hands just flow over the suiting white plate. On the back, we are greeted with the caliber L044.1 with the brand's signature fusee and chain mechanism. The underlying principle of the fusee and chain is to deliver a constant torque, much like a weight-driven clock, throughout the power reserve. To counter-effect the decrease of torque, the fusee and chain mechanism offers an increasing lever effect when the mainspring unwinds. At full winding, the chain is rolled around the fusee, which is a step cone. When the mainspring begins to unwind, it pulls the chain from the fusee to roll it on the barrel, thus delivers the equal torque throughout the power reserve. Lange Söhne devised two additional refinements to protect this delicate mechanism. It is vital that chain stays connected to both ends at all time. Hence, it has a fixed point both on the fusee and around the barrel, which means that it can be a victim of overwinding. In order to avoid this, Richard Lange Polymerite utilizes a blocking mechanism. When the chain is wrapped enough around the barrel, the chain that is closer to the fusee pushes the yellow lever towards the upper side. This action pushes the blue blocking lever, which stops the pink blocking ratchet above. Hence, the chain can no longer move. Finally, on Richard Lange Polymerite, I must admit that the winding feeling is absolutely sensational. To feel the chain wrapping itself around the barrel click by click and actually having the chance to observe its move from behind is truly addictive. This is a watch that was made for a group of connoisseurs who enjoy watchmaking above all. Richard Lange Polymerite has its skeleton made of tradition, but was carried onto the wrist in the most timeless manner, with the combination of finance elements to fit the narrative. It is this coherence what makes Richard Lange Polymerite a highly special watch, in a time where it is really hard to separate the pure hobbyist from the opportunist. This is one of the few watches that immediately talks about you, a pure watchmaker's watch. Here, another watch deserves the spotlight too, a watch with unprecedented technicality, a final hurrah to save the Cabaret collection from the same pure watchmaking mindset, Cabaret Tourbillon. Introduced in 2008, Cabaret Tourbillon is the world's first wristwatch with the hacking tourbillon mechanism, an invention over watchmaking's most romanced mechanism, again done by Lange Söhne. According to the brand's engineers, Stopping the tourbillon was possible in several ways. One of them was to force it within the mechanism, which would bring the tourbillon to halt slowly rather than precise motion. Not good enough. They wanted the movement to be stoppable in any angular position of the balance wheel and regardless of the orientation of the tourbillon cage. And they insisted that the balance to be released again without failure. The solution was a V-shaped braking spring. Such solution breaks the balance wheel and the cage simultaneously, regardless of their position, and does it in a way that is completely harmless. I don't know if anyone has tried this, but in its 200 years of existence, we never saw a brand managing to stop the tourbillon and the balance with such precision. Albeit the Cabaret Tourbillon was not warmly welcomed, possibly due to its astronomical and rather illogical price at $265,000 in platinum, the meaning and the importance of such invention stays undisputed. To me, it is crazy how such a young manufacturer came up with so many miraculous advancements for matchmaking, from tourbillon polymerite to double split to Cabaret Tourbillon. However, in my opinion, possibly the most important one was yet to arrive. Now, in 2008, if I were to ask a collector on how would he or she define the brand, probably I would hear words like classic, reserved, understated, traditional, etc., which boils down to being boring for many. To a certain extent, this was an accurate identification too. Lange's watch families at the time were perfectly characteristic and distinguishable. However, there was not a bomb, so to speak. None was expecting anyway, because as it was perceived, Lange Söhne was a traditional watchmaking manufacturer which belongs to a publicly listed group. In other words, not very much into taking risks. As different and original as the icons such as Lange 1 and Datograph, they were rather classic still. However, it was pointless to expect Lange to keep rejuvenating the past with the sugar coat of tradition and heritage. Indeed, little known, the claim of traditional manufacture was against the very foundational codes of Lange Söhne. In an interview by Gisbert Brunner and Günter Blümlein, he specifically points out Lange's ties with tradition as follows in 1994. I quote from Blümlein, "It is not our intention to celebrate traditional craftsmanship or to compete for the most complicated clock. One of our goals is watchmaking beauty and perfect craftsmanship. On the other hand, innovations and differentiating design are important parameters for us." In this light, I can say that 2009 is a milestone for Lange Söhne. I can even name it BZ and AZ, a second rebirth in my book, something truly unprecedented surfaced once again from Gloucester, the Zeitwerk. It was not like anything the brand produced before. It was not following a trend. It was not something one would expect from such a traditional brand. Many hated, many loved, but none was indifferent. People wrote, "I have gone from hating to falling in love in 2 hours." And that was indeed the goal of the watch and its success. Famous words that every watch enthusiast used at least once in their lifetime, losing the DNA, were echoing in every get-together or forum discussions, claiming that Lange lost its core. On the contrary, it was the true reveal of the essence. The concept of Zeitwerk, or jumping hours, minutes I shall say, goes back to the 19th century, to Joseph Paulweber. The vertical design was actually due to the technical constraints of its time. In Paulweber's patent application, we can clearly see that the inventor also went for the horizontal alignment, yet could not realize. The idea of making a digital watch for Lange, as most things, came from Günter Blümlein. However, his original sketch was close to IWC's Paulweber, and Lange took it a step further to horizontally aligned digital wristwatch. The team at Lange Söhne, mainly Jens Schneider, as the name on the patent registration here tells me, tackled this 120 years of engineering problem. The delicate oddities with the Zeitwerk starts from its case. While examining the case, the first thing that immediately capturing the attention is the big crown at 2 o'clock. Such arrangement is a result of the movement architecture that brings Zeitwerk to life, as the balance wheel occupies the usual 3 o'clock position. The feeling on the wrist is gratifying. It is heavy, it is there, and one can feel the snap when the remontoire discharges its energy to move the huge discs. It is truly an experience that one can only fully appreciate by strapping it on the wrist. The most striking element of the deceptively simple dial are the windows, a modern interpretation of the famous 5-minute clock in Dresden's Semper Opera House. Zeitwerk is a time travel machine in 41mm, to be honest. Looking at the design, we see that Zeitwerk's dial is split into 2 equal parts on each axis. Windows lie on the horizontal, whereas the hands and subdial circles on the vertical. Aptly shaped, batwing resemble a time bridge, further accentuates the symmetry and balances the lower and upper halves. The gong-shaped spaces on the right and left hand side are obvious, hinting what is to come in a few years. In short, Zeitwerk is one of those few watches where the abundant symmetry is not boring at all. The Zeitbrücke, the time bridge in English, is made of rhodium-plated German silver and brushed against a grainy dial surface. It is actually a part of the mechanism, hence the reason there is a screw on the left and a bearing jewel on the right. Lange designers deserve a round of applause for incorporating a functional part of the movement to an overall aesthetics in such a masterful way, where the part itself becomes the signature element of the watch. The disc jump is so fast and accurate, one just wants to meet with the watchmaker and hand over a medal for the meticulous adjustment. Luckily I did, but did not give him a medal, unfortunately. What is more fascinating is, this accuracy never fails. It just snaps 1,608 times a day with flawless accuracy. As controversial or out of the line, Zeitwerk was immediately recognized by GPHG in 2009, where the model won the Oscars of watchmaking, Agile de Grand Prix. Turning the Zeitwerk over, a mechanism as intriguing as its dial side greets us. To me, as its dial, Zeitwerk's movement, both technically and aesthetically, stands as unique in the ocean of derivative watches and movements. This is the movement that you show to your non-watch friends to make them understand what makes these pieces special. Now, let's briefly go over the parts of the caliber L043.1. Starting from the 12 o'clock and going clockwise, we have the mainspring barrel, anchor bridge carrying the constant font mechanism, escapement, balance wheel, and the winding gears. The mainspring barrel provides the power to run the watch. Zeitwerk carries the thickest mainspring with the strongest torque that Lange Söhne produces due to the tremendous amount of power needed to switch the discs. The responsibility to manage such power, however, is on the shoulders of the remontoire mechanism. The pre-tensioned remontoire spring sandwiched between the 2 third wheels receives uniform amounts of energy from the mainspring via the center wheel, while the lower third wheel stores extra power. In this situation, the lower, which is the driving third wheel, is fixed. Meanwhile, the remontoire spring transmits the newly absorbed energy to the upper, which is the driven third wheel, and then to the escapement via the rest of the wheel train. Basically, the Zeitwerk works by unlocking the lower third wheel every 60 seconds to provide the necessary power to advance the discs. At a glimpse, the wheel snaps forward, remontoire is charged, and then the wheel gets blocked again. But how? The lower third wheel is alternately held by 2 control pinions. Their upper ends are each configured with a blocking disc and a blocking finger that alternately rests against one of the pallet stones of the Y-shaped control lever. This Y-shaped lever is controlled by the pallet jewel resting on the 4th wheel. As mentioned, While the lower third wheel is blocked, the remontoire supplies the energy to the rest of the gear train. The fourth wheel, which completes its rotation in every 60 seconds, carries the eccentric roller. The Y-shaped lever is connected to the roller, and at every 60th second, the Y-shaped lever is pulled and the blocking disc is released, only to be blocked once again with the other end of the lever. A note here, the difference between pre-arming and non-pre-arming movement lies within this section. So, in a nutshell, every minute, the constant forward mechanism releases enough energy to move all three discs. But this creates another problem, because only once in every hour the watch needs such energy. There comes another ingenious solution called the Wingflüge, or the windbreak, a part resembling a revolving door which can be seen beneath the last jewel bearing of the remontoire bridge. The windbreak starts to turn upon the tension release and dumps the rest of the energy by using air friction, hence completes the marvel taking place every minute without hurting the movement at all. On top of such mind-boggling technicality, the caliber L043.1 comes with an astonishing finish and architecture. From the white stripes to brushed and polished steel parts, the harmony is just fantastic and does justice to the watch's uniqueness. As controversial as it was, Lange Söhne did not stop or get discouraged by mixed reactions, and only a year later actually dropped another bomb, which I deem to be the finest Lange Söhne watch ever made, the Phantom. The real treat with Zeitwerk Lumen is unquestionably the dial. Its ancestor was a home run in itself, a cool watch from Lange for the first time, but somehow it got even cooler. To me, this is the most badass and defined watch ever created by Lange actually. According to Tony De Haas, the idea came at night while trying to read the time on the Zeitwerk. Alas, no one cannot, simply because Zeitwerk has no lume spots. The only possible solution was to lume up the discs. However, since the discs change frequently, 60 seconds for the minute disc, 10 minutes for the decimal and so on, there was no time to charge up the lume. Thereby the idea of charging the discs while they are hidden beneath the smoke sapphire arrived. The smoky sapphire glass acts as a reversed sunglass and allows only UV rays to pass. As the superluminova charges throughout the day with the UV, it creates an enticing glow in the dark. The German silver time bridge is coated in black, creates a very strong visual harmony. Especially at night with the lume coming alive, the contrast between the black and green is a sight to behold. In the coming years, we saw the quick expansion of the Zeitwerk collection. Zeitwerk striking time arrived in 2011. As you might be familiar with chiming complications, they are mostly found in classical dress watches, and many were expecting from Lange to follow the tradition as well. But Lange being Lange, their first chiming model arrived in the most unexpected form. For the first time in a Lange watch, you can't only see, but also hear the passage of time. Zeitwerk striking time is neither a sonnerie nor a repeater, however, certainly a respectable achievement, as it is a combination of such an important mid-complication with the ingenious and already exceptionally demanding Zeitwerk. And above all, it symbolizes a manufacturer's relentless chase for constant differentiation, and I consider myself lucky to witness such an area. The black polished hammers implementation to overall design is flawless. They reside in their similarly shaped cutouts and fit in naturally. Steel hammers are gracefully black polished on top and beautifully chamfered by hand. At certain angles, they appear half black, half grey, showcasing an irresistible result of the technique. The German silver time bridge surrounding brightened hammers is brushed, putting more emphasis on the exceptional craftsmanship. Following years brought more on the chiming complications, but we'll leave those for the coming episodes. In addition to the mentioned, Lange unveiled a few more interesting pieces, such as the Daymatic and the Referenzuhr, a Lange one with an automatic movement and a mirrored design. Daymatic is a watch that I couldn't get used to for quite a while, but in time I have discovered it to be a very comfortable, versatile and an easygoing piece. The mirrored display makes it possible to read the time from under the cuff, which is actually more beneficial than one might think. On the back, it houses the brand's second automatic movement, L021.1. Another beautiful piece from Lange. We are greeted by a solid gold rotor with deep engravings over the three-quarter plate with gold chatons and blue screws, more than you would ever need. As successful as it was, the Daymatic, however, was kind of forced to live under the great shadow casted by its origination, I'm afraid, hence its rather unpopularity. The last piece I would like to talk about is the Referenzuhr. To me, the peak of Lange's experimental approach and a lesson on merging tradition with modernity. What do I mean? Well, you know, back in the days, the precise time would be calculated by astronomers to be transferred to precise pendulum clocks. Then it would be distributed around the city via pocket chronometers. Here, a question arises. How were they setting the chronometers to the second? Now, this is the Referenzuhr's specialty. To tackle this issue, watchmakers of Dresden invented a reset and store mechanism. The actuation of the push piece synchronizes the seconds hand of the instrument with that of a reference clock exactly when its hand passes the 60-second mark. This action stores the time of the reference clock and allows it to be transferred to other timekeeping instruments. Referenzuhr builds on this tradition with the help of modern watchmaking and offers history in a very attractive package. This is not a watch to sell hundreds of. This is a watch that only a true watchmaker would put out, just because they can and just because they respect tradition. The end of the 2000s show us how Lange Söhne managed to keep the innovative spirit alive while preserving its identity at its finest. A transition period, one might say. The brand went through the economical crisis as well as the changing management just fine. Of course, for many, it boils down to the watches, and the brand was operating as strong as ever on that branch as well. On the other hand, things were about to change from the ground. In the next episode, we are going to cover the arrival of Wilhelm Schmidt, the changing face of the brand, and Lange's push towards the highest end of the pyramid with pieces like Handwerkskunst, Grand Complication, and Zeitwerk Minute Repeater. Thank you very much.